Very good morning from the sports desk. The Formula E Championship makes its maiden pit stop in Cape Town, a street track that has been designed in Greenpoint with 11 teams, 20 drivers arriving and ready for action. The series, of course, it's more about just the motorsport as it aims to educate the public about e-mobility. But we're going to be focusing on the motorsport itself because Sport Editor Vata Ngobeni is on the track. He is essentially next to the pit stops and the pit lanes, of course, to just bring us that action as the cars come in. A very good morning to you, Vata. I mean, it's already action-packed. We've seen just yesterday with the first free practice that there was a crash that took place, just one of those cars just essentially getting shattered in the barriers. And I think that brings me to maybe my first point, is that when you watch Formula One, you will see some of these cars also, when they hit the barriers, they hit them at quite some speed. And, the cars may not necessarily get shattered depending on the speed they're driving at, but these ones seem a little lighter, and that when they do run into those barriers at perhaps, 200 kilometers an hour, they just fall into pieces.
Yes, good morning, Morena. Yes, without a doubt, I think the speeds at which these cars are traveling, excess of 300 kilometers an hour. This is officially the fastest circuit on the E-Prix series of races. Also the fastest corner, which is corner number 12 on the circuit itself. So we're in for some very, very fast racing. We saw yesterday in free practice 1 there was a crash. That was in the Cooper, in one of the Coopers. Unfortunately, it was not Kelvin van der Linde, the South African, and they were able to fix the car quite easily overnight, and it's up and running this morning. However, Morena, I think the most interesting thing that I really, really want to take you through this morning is the fact that we've got four former Formula One drivers in the paddock. In this Formula E, and we'll start off first with Kelvin van der Linde, not a former Formula One driver, but he is a South African, and there's big interest obviously in him and his team. He's come in obviously as a replacement driver, but this will be his second race. But from Kelvin van der Linde, these are the big names when it comes to Formula E. Jean-Eric Vergne and Stoffel van Dorn. That's a DS Penn's team. There are 3 World Championship titles within that garage, so a lot is expected of that team. Stoffel van Dorn being the reigning world champion at the moment, and Jean-Eric Vergne having won 2 World Championships, of which 2 of them are back-to-back. Those 2 are back-to-back, becoming the first man in Formula E to win back-to-back titles.
There is someone else, though, that might be looking to essentially destabilize Stoffel as well as Jean-Eric, and that is someone by the name of Lucas di Grassi. Lucas is himself someone that knows what it's like to taste victory on a Formula E circuit. Does he have an opportunity, though, as you've mentioned, there are 3 world titles in the same team? Can he do it?
Listen, Morena, I think it's going to be a very, very big ask for him. He did win the World Championship almost, if I'm not mistaken, Morena, about 4 years ago or so. And it's going to be quite more than 4 years ago. I think 6-7 years ago. So it will be quite a big ask for him. But again, he's one of those former Formula One drivers. Lucas di Grassi, please bear with us, Morena, because we walk in the pit lane and we're going to eventually get to di Grassi's garage, which is on the one end of the pit lane. And there it is. He races for the Mahindra Racing team. Lucas di Grassi, only 1 season in Formula One, and if I'm not mistaken, Morena, he drove for the Virgin team in that 1 year that he was involved with Formula One. I don't think that Mahindra at the moment are going to be a force. They're going to struggle a little bit with the other teams that are really, really pushing. But he's one driver to watch out for. Someone who's won a world championship, without a doubt, will be a major threat when it comes to when racing eventually happens later on this afternoon. And then Morena, we've got a big one here. There's 2 Africans. Yes, big focus for South Africa is Kelvin van der Linde, but there's a special man here raised under the German flag in Formula One, and that's Pascal Wehrlein. And here's the Porsche team. They're coming. One of their cars is coming in. I think it's Antonio da Costa. He's coming in after free practice. I think he might have had a bit of a dent because we see that a bit of his nose is missing there. Nothing too difficult for these mechanics, Morena. They will be able to sort these cars out for qualifying. So that piece of the nose that's missing will be sorted out very quickly. And I'm sure this car will be ready for qualifying.
I mean, just from a point, just very quickly, Vata, before we throw back to Ropiwa, just from a point of representation, you know, what does it mean for the first Formula E race on the African continent, well, southern part of the African continent, because Morocco's hosted it before. So in like a static region, to be hosting a Formula E race for the first time, and you've got a German Mauritian that is representing, you know, Porsche in this particular race. He is essentially close to home by coming in here. And of course, I do speak of Pascal Wehrlein. In terms of representation, what does his presence here mean?
No, it's massive, Morena. This is only the second black driver in Formula One. That's after Sir Lewis Hamilton. And more than anything, I think Southern Africa, the SADC region, can claim him because he's got Mauritian blood in him. He's German Mauritian. And so this is massive, massive, massive for Southern Africa. It's massive for Africa itself. As I did say earlier on, a huge focus for South Africa is on Calvin van der Linde. But this is one of our own as well. I think Southern Africa can own him and say he's one of theirs. And to have a driver, a black driver, participating in Formula E as well is a massive, massive thing. I think it speaks volumes to where the sport is going and the transformation and progression that they want to see in the sport itself. So, you know, to have him here in South Africa will inspire a lot of kids from the country itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking Khayelitsha, Langa, you know, all of those places in Cape Town and even beyond, you know, the city of Cape Town, South Africa, SADC region itself, the kids in Mauritius looking ahead and seeing Pascal Wehrlein just taking part in Formula E, you know, and that representation will definitely go a long way because this, I would imagine, is not going to be the last race that Cape Town hosts in Formula E. So having somebody that can add to that representation will definitely bode well for the sport itself and for black people around the world. Vata, we'll leave it there with you, but definitely going to be catching up a little later, you know, as things do essentially heat up to the main race that is happening from 4 o'clock this afternoon. That is eNCA Sports Editor Vata Ngobeni, of course, just coming to us from essentially the pit stops and the pit lanes of all of those different races. Calvin van der Linde is who South Africa is going to be watching very closely as he essentially flies our flag high. Ropiwa,